Hey everyone, how all you are doing? I hope so you are doing fine, great, awesome, and thanks folks for joining. I know it's more or like one of the more of the most hyped, you can say one of the most hyped stream we can say around it. But yeah, I guess yeah, I'm seeing comments around it. So yeah, great, great. Hey Akshat, thanks Mahashi for joining so soon. Yeah. Hey Ashish. Yeah. Hey, others. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Vinayak, for joining. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot peeps. Cool, cool, cool. Great, great, great. So, yeah. Till then, everyone is joining. Let me check around it. Cool. So, I hope so. You are loving our regular stream that we are doing actually since 12th of August, I guess. And I hope so you're getting some insights around open source, how you can contribute to some of the one of the greatest project around the in open source if you will want to do. We are trying to more rationalize the whole open source streams more on with different technical stacks with different projects around it. I hope so you are loving that. But apart from it, yeah, yeah, cool, cool, cool. You can basically share your introduction if you want. We will love to see some more conversation around comment section. So we will love to have you there. But yeah, cool. Before getting into it, just wanted to share anything. All the links are in the description box. If you want to join our community, you can. Cool. And we have also some of the open source project that I will share at the end of the stream. Even though some of the issues are already open, I know it's the last week of Hacktoberfest, but you can try off around that side. Cool. Let's bring, I didn't take much more time. So let's bring one of the two awesome peeps around the community, Juan and Lewis.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having us. Now, I'm feeling the pressure of like being one of the most awaited like streams of the whole month.
Hi
Cool.
everyone. Oh, hello everyone.
Yeah, I guess I also know that because from their time zone, it's very early morning, I can say. So thanks, Louis, and thanks, Joanpa, for joining in the stream. We are so love to have you here. Um, let's start it off. We will didn't take much more time. And shout out to one of my backstage peeps, Tokir Khan, who is basically handling all the stuff. So shout out to him, basically. So yeah, great. Let's start off. So obviously there is a kind of a you can say thing that I did it for my in every stream. Like, what's your definition about open source? Maybe like in your term, it can be anything. So starting with maybe Lewis. Yeah, Lewis.
Hi there. Okay, what's open source for me? In my own words, open source it's a movement where everyone can collaborate, and it's made for everyone, by everyone, and for everyone. Um, it's this weird space. Sorry. It's this weird space where someone on a group of people, without wanting anything in exchange, create something and maintain something. That's something that it's the most difficult part. Like creating, it's easy. Like maintaining a library or a software, it's there. It's that's the for the problem start. They do it because they want, and they believe that if they share this piece of information or this piece of software or whatever, they can help other people. Like when you do open software, open source, like it could be open software, or there is also open hardware, or there is also open science. That, hey, I believe that if I share, my all what everything what's behind my paper or my research or this piece of hardware that I'm doing, someone can benefit, and someone can create a better version of this, or someone can see a problem that I'm not able to see it because I can only see it from this side. So for me, that's open source.
I love it. I think for me, I plus one everything that Luis just mentioned. Open source, it's kind of like this philosophy of just making sure that, and let me go a couple of steps back. And I think one of the most unique things about working in tech, specifically kind of like for open for like software, is that we have the ability to share these assets for free, or let's call them like artifacts, like code artifacts. The cool thing about that is that uh, is one of those kind of like very weird things that a lot of people, especially if you come from a business school, should never work. That is like you're working for free, you're doing this stuff like without getting any payment or anything, kind of like traditionally speaking back. But it's one of the things that, or one of these movements that have been essentially making tech what it is today. Like I don't think there's any company or any person that does not interact with open source at any point. So it's one of those things that is very unique to our industry. And for me, open source is just the ability of building with a group of people with full transparency in a collaborative way. So you're able to bring perspectives from people that are not only kind of like learning experts, whatever type of experience that they have. It is a great way for them to interact with the software that they are using every day and being able to advocate for where they want this piece of software to go and add like features or other type of like artifacts to this code base that aligns to what they're looking for.
That's an awesome definition from both of you, Louis and John Pa. I guess Ashish is saying, yeah, thanks for the shout out, Ashish. There is also OpenCo. So our kind of breaking, like obviously OpenCo stands for Open, Inclusive, and Collaborative Community. Um, so like I always stayed like recently, actually, I get into a Western culture, more like hip hop culture, basically, where I get resemblance of open source more like on a representative point of view. Like I guess I recently like listening Jay Z, Nas, that kind of stuff, and where they are representing their region. So that's what I get an analogy around it. Here we are representing. If you're part of a local community, global community, any community that you're part of, you are just like representing that part. So yeah, that's also an part that actually I brainstormed this in a journal in a stream only with one of my friend called Bart, who is basically a CNCF ambassador. We are talking around how even he's a very from a non-technical perspective guy. He's totally not a techie, but basically he's contributing to Kubernetes and that kind of stuff, even though he's not from a technical background, and which basically we basically kind of stands around it. But yeah,
Yeah. Can we build on top of that? Because I think that's a great topic of conversation where even like if you love or hate like TikTok or Instagram Reels, I think one of the really cool things about the platform is that it has allowed artists that were not able to have like a space be able to have one, right? And be able to showcase like their art. Before that, like you needed to know someone in the music industry, you needed to have like a lot of resources and all of that. And if you think about like open source, it's kind of like the same thing though. Like it's not about being part of a big company that is creating this closed source software that will get you to all of the clients that you need, but rather it's kind of like building in a free way so that anyone is able to see what you're doing, utilize it, or so for you, it's kind of like open source is not only about like building, but also the distribution of the software and giving that opportunity for everyone to just like put out there whatever they're building, and then people will decide whether like it's something valuable or useful for their projects. So it's kind of like the same thing as like TikTok or Instagram Reels and the music scene, where if people like it, they will kind of like hear it and that will get more popularity and more people will start hearing it. So I kind of like think it's very similar to what you were mentioning.
And you mentioned something that I think it's one of the only things that sounds better in Spanish than in English, that you mentioned free. And there's always this like clarification with free software in open source. Like it's free as in free press, not free as a free cake. Like remember that. Like it's not like it's freedom. Like this means of open source and that. And also you mentioned about like these other ways of collaborate. Like it's not always like code normally takes over all the spotlight. And this week, a couple of days ago, Juanpa hosted an amazing stream with Ramon that where they discuss that, like the other ways that you can contribute and you can share your passion and love about a certain project. And I want to ask Juanpa, like if he remembers some of the bullet points about like how you can what are the other great experiences about how you can participate in a project that you like.
One of the good things about like the discussions that we've had, just like you're critical, like we've been having like well, not 100, but like a few streams now on the GitHub Education stream, and it's been like great having like guests, and I think it's so cool that people are able to join. I think Ramon's talk is always like very welcoming for people that might be getting started in tech. The thing is that for us, a big component of this has been that, yes, like Luis mentioned, like a lot of the contributions, it's like a lot of people looking for like a green square on their GitHub like profile page, right? And there's a lot of ways in which people contribute that does not necessarily represent the green square on your GitHub profile. Like
Yep.
the word like folks are doing, right? Like organizing live streams, building a community. Like maybe GitHub won't give you a green square, but it is also a great way to contribute to open source. Um, there's also other ways, like we were talking about open source in multiple ways. Like one of them is just like the code and everything that lives in a GitHub repository, but there's also a big component about like the community, and it's not only about like that specific community or an open source project, but it's also about other open source projects that are being built or are being used um, to have like these project working. So it's also about like code, non code. It can be like translating, that I know a lot of people love, documentation, creating content. There's so many ways to contribute to open source. You're like when we think a little bit more about it, I'm probably more entitled to what the topic of discussion is today. But definitely there's the like I think like the point here is like open source is not only about like code, it's also about like communities. It's also about like helping others. It's making sure that a project, especially when you're contributing, like finding ways in which you can provide the most value to the project in the current form.
True. Yeah. Even though
And
like that's the main take that we started off, I guess, Hacktober week last year. We kind of touch around 50 plus PR merged, like a valid PR merge where they contributed to proper, not only just for the projects part, but they contributed on the copywriting part, the technical documentation part, advocacy part. Like that, actually, last year I did a kind of a session on how you can contribute as a developer advocate or why developer advocacy is needed around it. But yeah, so let's start off with that part basically. What's your definition of developer advocacy, and why developer advocacy? This is a two question maybe, and maybe starting with John Pa maybe this time. Yeah.
Yeah, well, developer advocacy as a role, I think it has multiple meaning depending on the company. I think that's something that a lot of companies are still working on. But for me, developer advocacy is kind of like that person that is fairly close to the users of a specific piece of software, and bringing kind of like not only teaching and helping people to get started with that piece of open source, but also helping bring those concerns and feedback from the community back into the company itself. So you're kind of like a bridge between the developers that are using the product and also the the company that is building that product. There are multiple ways, and effectively there's multiple roles in developer relations, right? Like developer advocate, developer relations. There's a few hundred like different roles, but essentially for specifically for advocacy, what I'm looking forward to is someone that is representing the company for developers and representing
Yeah.
the developers for the company. So someone that can bring both voices together and understanding what are some of the things. It can be like initiatives, it can be uh, pieces of like epics in terms of like code that will help connect better with the developer community, and especially making sure that you are hearing those very especially with like developer advocacies, about hearing those small but very important comments from the people using your tool. Because as a product manager, like you have like an overall view of the
Yeah.
product, but developer advocacy, like having those conversations, especially, and I was having this discussion a couple of days ago of what's the point of having a booth, right? And at an event. And one of the biggest mistakes that we see people make is that it's all about you talking about your product. Like it's you putting out like the information. But booths are also a great way to hear from the people that are using and not using your product. So it's a two-way conversation, and it's not only you giving stickers and talking about your product, but it's also about like hearing what the people that are using your product are thinking about it and what are some of those pains that they currently have, so that once the event finishes or once whatever you're doing finishes, you can bring that back to the product team and be like, hey, this is kind of what we heard from the community.
Uh, that's actually a really, really valid point, and I actually didn't think of on that way. And just realized like when on a last year Hack on India happened, obviously I will be there as a campus expert basically for to see like how people basically interacting with the GitHub products around it. And when I get a chance to meet a software developer who's working in GitHub basically, he is actually explaining about the stuff. He's actually taking me the feedback because he's the one who's a part of who basically created a community exchange portal, basically the whole GitHub campus expert portal. So I have a talk with him, and he's got a so much get so much feedback with me, like I have this problem, can you fix around it? Like he's totally regarding on that. But I never thought of in a booth. I thought a booth is just to basically talk about product and like just get some swags around it and just talk around it. But that's a really, really valid point, if I will say, John Paul. So thanks for adding that. And Louis, if you want to, like, what's your take around it? Yeah, around, yeah.
Yes. I saw a question, a comment on what is Ashwin? Like Ashwin this week it's having a vacation, so he's resting, so he's coming back next week.
Yeah.
So with all the energy back with to come back, so he's resting this week. So it's one of the things that we all should do. Like sometimes you need to rest and get energies back. But going back to the point, for me, and this is like a point that I heard like some years ago about like the difference between like you have like two main roles. Like you have the developer advocate and the developer evangelist. That it's less used that term, like developer evangelist. As Juanpa mentioned, like um one of the main differences is that if you're a developer evangelist, you go around like preaching the word of your technology, like this is why I have my this cup. It's the best thing that you could ever have. Like this the latest cup that you ever need in your whole life, and you don't need anything else. This is why you need it, and I don't care your necessities. This will solve everything. This will solve all your troubles with your coffee trouble. Like it's all you need. And you try to convince people, and that's your work. That's your work. You try to convince people that your technology, it's the one that they need to do, they need to use. Sorry. And if you're a developer advocate, I I'm gonna do Simpsons meme, and I'm gonna ask, and I'm gonna make this question: that have any of you have ever seen Tron, the movie?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because it's like no, no, no. A lot of people are gonna say no, and one people are gonna say yes, and it's gonna say no, no. Uh, if you're a developer advocate, you are Tron. You fight for the user, you fight for the developers. Like your job is to fight for them, to understand us. Basically, what Happa mentions, the futuristic movie, that one, like at the end of the movie, Tron goes like, "Hey, I fight for the users and rebel against everything." So that's the job of a developer advocate, to listen and to fight for the users. And making an example, some years ago, person of the development team of a company came to an event in Mexico, and he was recently hired, and he attended a hackathon that we used to organize. And he saw one friend who was using like the another technology, and he started attacking him like, hey, why you don't use our technology, it's better, blah 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 blah, and start like doing evangelism. And my friend was like, because it doesn't do what I need, like it doesn't do XYZ. And a couple of weeks after that, I saw my friend, and he was like, "That's not the way that someone should approach you and ask you and question you about why you don't use your technology. Instead of you should approach someone if you see, and if you are trying to sell something, if that's your approach for that interaction, you should approach. Oh, I see that you are using X. Okay, full disclaimer, I work in Y. Why do you use X? Which things do you like? Oh, I see that you are using this feature. Did you know that we also have that, and also you can do this stuff with this technology, and that way that you don't feel attacked, and you don't feel your decision like, yeah, perhaps I choose this because I didn't know the other one. But if someone approached to me and say to my face like, you're wrong because you're not using my technology, you feel attacked. You don't want to hear anything about the other piece of technology. Um, but if someone approached to you and try to understand and why you use that, and which things we can improve, why you don't use us. And as also, as Juanpa mentioned, that you can come back if your role is an advocate, you can come back to the product team and says, okay, you know what, I can be going to the events, and I keep hearing every time that we need to fix this, like it's broken, and people hate this part, like it's this flow, it's broken. And you serve as this bridge, as Juan perfectly mentioned, between like the product, your company, and the users. So that's it for me. That's it. Like you are thrown, but you fight for the users.
Yeah. I wanted to add in there something though, and this is kind of like a very common mistake, especially if it's your first role as a developer advocate, is that developer advocates are very visible as a role, and I think that drives a lot of people to be part of kind of like trying to join as a developer advocate. And there are a lot of developer advocates out there that are not super visible, but that are facilitating these things to happen. And I think at GitHub, like I know you probably know like 3 developer advocates that we have at the company, but there's like about like 5 or 7 that do a lot of things behind the scene. The important thing, and this is something for me that was very insightful, was to understand as well where in the company the developer advocacy role lives. And what I mean by that is that it's very different when your developer advocate role is under marketing than if it's under product, because there's very different ways to measure success. For a marketing team, they don't care if you bring a lot of like that feedback back well, they care, but the primary way of measuring success is not getting like new features or understanding the user in a way that you can bring like new initiatives or epics to a piece of software. They're much more about like, hey, how many new people do you sign up? How many new people are aware of our brand? How many people are converting? If you live in a product in a product kind of like organization, then it becomes more important about like what are you noticing that people are using this piece of software? How can we kind of make the onboarding a little bit better? So understanding the whole product flow and bringing that feedback back to the company so that they're able to make the changes in the product that are needed.
That's a really valid point, and even I have a same discussion with John Pa, like while on the GitHub Field Day Bangalore, around the developer advocacy because part only around this part only, because at the end of the day, if you become a developer advocate, like even though it is very fantasized in past 1 to 2 years around, you get so much famous kind of that stuff. It's okay around it, And because it's a part of your job, you want to interact with people, those who are using your product, using your company's product. And again, think like that. Don't just become a developer advocate on the sake of just becoming of it. If you're not passionate about the company and the product, like if I'm just say like I also interned at Postman because I used it, I advocated in my small meetups in that front. Same with John Paul Lewis, they use GitHub, they're contributing to open source because it's a part of the whole workflows, if I will say, right? So before becoming a developer, suppose if you say like there is no developer advocate for Google search engine, but the developer advocates are for you can say Angular, because it's at the end of the day Google search engine is normal use. It's a kind of a product. But when we say developer advocacy, they you have a different genres to it. And when we say I still prefer, they still we have in proprietary software, there's still they have a developer advocates. But on a overviewing point, because developer advocacy is more around, that's what I thought of on a more on an open source side. The reason is being two things: code is open, and maximum time it's dev tools around it. So if you are use those kind of product, you contributed to that product. That's why even though I am not an official Google developer advocate in TensorFlow.js, but I still do it because I love that product. I contributed to that product, and I'm into much more than a machine learning community on a side basis, basically around it. So that's why people say why you are just giving around these talks only, because I use those product in my small projects like that. So my first thing is again, tech is for everyone. Obviously, for a developer advocate you have to become, you have to understand the product. But again, tech is not limited to that. Even though if you are a technical content contributor, that's also a biggest way you can. But at the end of the day, if you're creating content, you have to know something about that product. Otherwise, how will you explain to other people, right? At the end of the day, it's majorly communication. But the content part that you are saying or writing or anything, or maybe if you're doing videography around it also, you have to know something around that product. Otherwise you can't able to explain to many people out there. So that's a great point, John and Lewis around it. And yeah, that's the main question, like that's many people have right now. So if I will just say like these, what is the best way to get started with it, not develop advocacy in general, I am right now asking around, I can say around, like let's go on that thing. How anyone can start as a developer advocate, if I will say, if maybe he just started off it, maybe just he completed his second year right now, or you can the fourth semester, if I will say. So what's your take around it? Why I'm saying second year, because generally for second year they can kind of grab around some coding stuff, maybe in any language, maybe if I will say on that prominent thing. But yeah, what's your take on both? Maybe starting with John Pa. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very valid question. I think this is one of the best things about open source, and is that you can use open source as a way to prepare yourself or get that experience that you might need to get the job that you're looking forward to after you have graduated. And what I mean by that is, think about it this way: when you're looking for a job, most likely they're going to look for a couple of things, and one of them is probably you will need a degree and you will need some previous experience. And the way that you get into a job is by like applying. They check your resume, they check that everything looks fine. Then you'll go through 2, 3, even like 5 interviews, and then you finally are able to just provide like value to that company. But with open source, no one cares where you're coming from and what your experience is. Like, imagine, can you imagine like if open source was looking for a resume every time you were submitting a pull request? It would be absolutely awful and impossible for maintainers to continue with their projects. So, if you're looking forward to get started with developer advocacy roles, a great way to start is either by organizing small meetups or getting more involved in a community within open source, so that you can start learning and start having that hands-on experience on what the developer advocates do. Of course, and this is one of the challenges of developer advocacy, is that it's so wide in the spectrum of responsibilities that you can have, that I would recommend that you would start with something that is fairly simple, or that is something that you're very interested in. And that can be, as you mentioned, like you're interested in TensorFlow. So organize a TensorFlow meetup at your school, or give TensorFlow um, workshops at your school. You can also join like their Discord server, Slack, whatever they're using, so that you can share a little bit more of what you're doing, and also to, I would say, to kind of like start building that trust also within the project, which is probably one of the biggest like economies within open source, is the trust economy, which has to do with what have you done with the project, that, or what have you done in the past that kind of will make you trust you a little bit more of like the things that you're doing. So for example, if I jump in into TensorFlow and I'm just like, hey, let's redo the whole readme, and I push like a pull request, people would be like, why, who are you, and why do you think this is kind of like a priority? And they will take it away, right? But instead, if I start little by little, and then I like, hey folks, I think like our readme has been not updated for a while, would love to take some time and jump into it, then you can jump, and you can add that to your resume, right? Like you can add that to like, hey, I'm a very kind of like active contributor to this project, or I have been giving workshops to teach people how to use this particular technology. And then when you apply for a role after you have graduated, or during your time as a student, or if you didn't graduate but you already want a job, that's also valid. You can use these experiences as a way. But essentially, I would say the biggest benefit of contributing to these open source projects in a developer advocacy type of role is that very naturally you will start building a network of people who do very similar things, and that who might be able to recommend you or give you a referral for a job. So it's a great way to also start connecting with other people. And my only recommendation is, if you really want to take this role, like, stay in touch with the maintainer and with like the team behind the project, because a lot of the times what I've seen is that there's a lot of, well, there's some mis missed goals, let's call it. Like, there's misalignments between what you're pushing as a developer advocate and what the project is looking forward to. So try to do your developer advocacy role in a way that provides value to the project, so that the maintainer or the maintainer team keep themselves like very happy of like the work that you're doing, and I'm sure they would be up to sharing that even more, but also helping you kind of get that experience and that exposure that will most effectively help you to get that job after in I don't know, when you're looking for it.
Yep. That's really great points. I'm just going to Louis, but just steady sharing with other folks who are joining. We have a giveaway going on, so we have two giveaways in this whole stream. If you take a screenshot, or if you want to share something on Twitter, or like anything, or write a blog on the whole stream around developer advocacy, we will take some of the social media. And we are again not promoting the like that giveaways, like those one are very likes or retweets kind of thing. Nothing like that. We will totally read your content, and if we feels like you create a great content, then we will give away around it. And second giveaway is more like those who are most active on comment box. So one winner will be taken from John Pine Lewis both. One winner from the chat, those who are one of the active in the whole chat section basically. And just wanted to add, it just like anyone have forgotten the giveaways going on, like. But let's go back to Lewis, what's your take around it? Yeah.
Well, I will say plus one on Juanpa points, and also I would love to add a couple of things. The first one is that I will build over this. I'm no TensorFlow. Like I'm a TensorFlow advocate on my own, and I write content about TensorFlow, and I perhaps go to hackathons and I mentor people about TensorFlow. But that also means that I'm able and I can I know how to use other tools. So perhaps I'm expert in TensorFlow, but I have used MATLAB or Azure machine learning tool, and I know kind of I have played with those. Like I have certain experience with those. And someone approached to me in during the hackathon and says, "Hey, I'm doing this with MATLAB. Can you help me out?" I I can tell that that person. Yes, I don't have as much experience with MATLAB. I'm more experienced with TensorFlow. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. I think the problem is around here. You can check out like this. If you are interested, like I see that you are just starting, like this, you can do it easily with TensorFlow. Like this is specific thing that you want to do, it will be so much easier with TensorFlow. But if you want to continue with MATLAB, like I think that the documentation. I read this article about how you can set up this. Like I will find it and I will drop it to you, and that way you're giving the student or the person who is attending the event like the choice. Like, hey, this person solved my question, but also give me an alternative. Like, oh, perhaps I didn't know about TensorFlow, and I will try it because it's a hackathon, and I want to play with. Juan also mentioned like I can go to the I can go to the GitHub of TensorFlow, and I was checking out, and they have like almost 2,000 issues open as today. And one way that you can start getting influence, and you can start getting noticing, is that one of the pain points of any issue reported on a project is that you don't know if it's that only because that issue only happens in a person's machine, or a certain setup, or certain way that it's the configuration, or it's something that's about the project, that's something more broad the problem. So if you go see the issue and you try to reproduce the issue and say, okay, this also is happening with me, so I was able to reproduce this issue, so I can confirm that this issue is not it's not it only not is it affects more people, not only the people, but the person who is reporting this. So that way that the the sad part is that it will take time, because the maintainers, like the Google employees, they're going to start noticing like, oh, I see this person is helping us, and this person is writing books, it's answering the issues, it's trying to reproduce. So when the time is come, it could happen like several things. Like they could I have some cases about people who they can write to you and say, hey, you know what, we saw that you are doing an amazing job, thank you so much, like you are doing like a are you interested in a job? We are thinking about opening a position, and you know the tool, and we would like to apply. Or they can tell you, okay, you know what, like sadly we don't have any positions open, but we would love to send you some swag, and some present, because you are helping us so much. And of course, you're not doing like your first thought is not, I'm not doing this because I want the swag or I want the job. Of course, there's like that's the second or third like intention, that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I want to help, and I love the technology, I love the project, I love what's behind. All of that comes next, like all of these prices and all of these shiny things. But that's a way that you can start like gaining winning influence. And remember that, especially as a advocate or someone who is related with the community, your one of your biggest assets is your influence, and it's your credibility inside the community. Like so when you say something like TensorFlow, it's the best tool when you do this. You live by your own words. Like you live by or you're murdered by your own words. Like you need to be very cautious when you say things in public. And um, okay, see, question: how important is it to understand the needs and challenges of the developers audience you are advocating for? I guess it's really important. We have mentioning like during this hour that part of the job is to listen to shut up and listen, basically, like listen what the developers of the tool think about the tool itself, which things they love, which things they hate, which things they consider that they it be changed, and that transform into perhaps a thing that everyone loves. The product team is thinking about to taking away that part because they think nobody used us, nobody used that part. So if you come back and say, "Hey, I went to these events all around the world, and I got this feedback about like they love how we do this," they can say, "Oh, I didn't know, we didn't know." Like perhaps we can consider maintaining this tool that we thought nobody used it. Um, but I will let Juanpa continue answering this question.
I think it's very valid. Can I think it's very easy to see, or it's very easy to watch when someone is knows their audience and when someone is joining like developer advocacy because they want like the Twitter fame. Um, so understanding the audience is the core component of developer advocacy, because it's like, who are you going to build like content, or who you're going to be working with if you don't understand your audience first? So I think the first step, especially, and this is very important if you're joining a company that didn't have a developer advocacy role before and they are just opening it, there's some kind of user research you need to run in order to fully understand who is the persona, who is the people using the tool, so that you're able to work more effectively as a developer advocate and build things that are valuable for them as well. So definitely the first step is understanding your audience so that you're able to build things on top of that that are aligned not only to what the company wants, but also to what the audience wants to see from that company.
Yep. There's one more question, I guess. What's the best way to motivate peers to participate in hackathons and contribute to open source?
That's a great question. Um, there's a lot of experience that we've gained in the past few years, and for us,
Yeah,
one of
there
the
is there is
yeah.
one case actually which I saw. Really sorry to interrupt you. I just putting this question as a case. Suppose maybe there's someone who want to build community when there is no community at all. Like literally exist there is no existence of community. On that point of view, if you can share the pointers, maybe how the even though like many of the campus experts who like selected or maybe throughout the whole journey, like they are from some of those basically region where there's not active as much community, but they're still contributing to it on that side. But what your take on that consideration, if there is no community at all in that region and you want to build a community, so how anyone can motivate, even though you will say there's not at all, they are also in some particular areas, although they are just some people, they are just going for the college for the sake of just going for the college. They are not at all interested in maybe in technology, or they are also maybe not understand over that a part of technology. So what's your take like on that case basis? Can you share some pointers around it? Same with Louis also. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, like, if you go to college just to go to college is completely valid. I don't think we need to force anyone into thinking that they need to go to a hackathon or they need to be like into open source and all of that. I strongly believe that, if you want to go to college just to finish your degree, get a job, it is okay. Like, no one will force you to do other things. What I would recommend for folks who are getting started with their own communities is, first of all, see if there are other communities in your campus. One of the common mistakes that we see is that people always like to start something new when there's also already something built, and there is I think it makes more impact to contribute to something that is already established than to start from scratch. There's some cases where it makes sense to start something on the side, but definitely like take some time to see or seek to seek if there are not probably not communities, because community is it's quite a worth, I would say. But if there are like student clubs, or if there are like any clubs, if there are any kind of like meetups, any mini events or anything, I think I would start from there. The second thing that I would recommend is that there is a lot of pressure to do things at scale, especially when you're getting started. So a lot of these, and what I mean by that is that people want to organize the biggest hackathon in the country. They want to organize the biggest workshop. They want to have all the school joining for their events. And the biggest one of the mistakes about that is that they forget kind of like the reason why they want to start a community, which is what's kind of like the problem that you're trying to solve, like what's the thing that you're trying to breach, so that other people are able to benefit from the events and the organization that you have. And a lot of the times what we also have seen is that people organize hackathons just because you want to organize a hackathon, but there's no real kind of like philosophy behind it. And that can, what that creates is, yes, you can have a hackathon, but it's a hackathon without a soul. It's just like another hackathon there. And there's a few people that I would recommend taking a look at. Like, for example, I think Siddharth with Hack This Fall has been building a great community from scratch.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like something that a lot of people now, like, I think he now has like the reverse problem where there's a lot of interest, but he doesn't have enough time to dedicate
Yep.
to it. There's other meetup that I would recommend. What's the name? On Code Bar. It's kind of like a diversity type of like community. It started in the UK
Mhm.
and now it's growing globally. They have some really cool stuff there. And the
Okay.
last kind of like thing is like, well, and what I'm going with that is, if you organize like an event with only your friends, like 3 or 4 people, that's like already a great contribution. You don't need to have like 1,000 people to make a valid kind of like contribution or build a community. And the last mistake, and this is something that Luis and I have been like talking a lot about, is the lonely wolf, which has to do with the organizer that does everything on their own. And it's kind of like hard sometimes to distribute tasks with other members of the community or with other people that you're friends with. But every time we see that, we see people struggle, suffer, and even end up like hating building communities or organizing events. So the other thing is that never do any community or any event on your own. Always try to search for other people that are kind of like interested. And even if they're not going to do like a massive contribution to the event, just by having them in like, hey, help us welcome people at the door, help us kind of like get people hyped as they join. uh, that's a great contribution already. So definitely work with other people to build this community, and also make sure that you recognize and appreciate the work that other folks are doing in your community. A lot of the times I see people that organize hackathons, the hackathon finishes, everyone is burnout, so they just want to finish. They send a post event report and they've kind of like never talk about the event again. And I think it's always great to take some time and think about how the event went, what can be done better next time. Which, if you're a campus expert, you understand our post event report now a little bit better. But it's also about celebrating the achievement of organizing an event and
Yep.
celebrating with everyone. It doesn't matter how big or small their achievement was, and that recognition will really help out people to come back later to organize more stuff with you.
Yep. Luis, want to add something maybe on this part?
Yeah. I will give everyone a petition, and that's it. That the next time you attend a community event, at the end, approach the organizers and says thank you. Like the effort that you are doing organizing this event, this hackathon, this meetup, this workshop, this whatever, like it's worth it. I notice your effort. People who organize, they don't do it because they want the palm in their back, but it it always feel good that someone goes and says, "Hey, I notice your effort. I thank you for that." It always felt good to when you receive the stars and the sparkles about your job. And yeah, you cannot force anyone to attend a hackathon or an event, but what you can do is that you, especially if you are a student, you normally you can see the persons who are kind of interested, like, but or they're afraid, or they don't want to go alone to that event, or they don't want to be only one, you can tell them, hey, let's go together. Like let's I saw this event, this hackathon, this open source stuff. Uh, I want to go, and I think you are interested. Do you want to go with me? And that way that you are leaving the decision to that person, but also sometimes we don't want to take the first step into attending the event or the hackathon, or we don't want to be alone in the hackathon. So you can be like, hey, um, I'm thinking into attending this hackathon, and I kind of have a team, but I would love to if you can join us. That normally do the trick. And finally, I will say that that's another mistake that we observe is that while money makes everything easy when you are organizing an hackathon event community, it's not necessary. Like it's certainly makes things easy when you have the resources to have swag, food. You can offer scholarships or all that kind of stuff. But if you want to start something, you should start like organizing, and you should start saying, hey, we organize this meetup about TensorFlow in my university, and I'm gonna invite three of my friends. And at the end of the event, I can ask everyone, "Hey, if you know someone else who perhaps might be interested into attending this meetup, let's invite it to the next one." And with that, and only with 1 minute left, and say thank you so much. And that's what I have to share.
Yep, I guess that's a great points, Lewis. And like from my experience also, I've seen folks who are in the chat. I'm that guy also, where there's no one in over that period of time when I started of community. There is COVID happened, so I given 2 hours of session in introduction to ML, and only one guy is there, and that guy is just my co-organizer. So that's also I did. So don't think like people are not understanding what you are doing. And again, second point that I think like many people maybe not pride about what you are doing. Just be proud. Like if you want to do a share on your WhatsApp status, Instagram stories, you should be proud of what you are doing. And at the end of the day, community is more on a passionate kind of thing. That what I think of. I still doing, it's like 4 to 5 years now for me to contributing to communities. I am doing because I love it. It's as simple as it is, because we are passionate about it. If we talk about Louis, John Pa, we are totally passionate about communities. That's why we are doing still now. It's not like around that part, obviously. And obviously think more, or like I think more on contributing to not just for the community, just for the it's more on a contributing to society. Think like a region, there is nothing infrastructure investments happen from maybe government, but if you're doing meetups, you are basically creating ecosystem for startups. That what I when I go through the case studies of different tech cities of different world, this is what I common think of. If there is a community, there soon will be tech ecosystem will be boom, and if there tech startup ecosystem will be there, soon there will be community will be there for sure. So it's a, like a directly proportional kind of thing. So suppose there is no tech startup ecosystem in your maybe region, you start doing community work. It's 5 years for me, and still I will still do it for my region, because I know the capabilities that my region consists of around it. So it directly depends on that thing. Just keep pushing hard, keep doing what you love. Simple as it is. Keep doing what you love, otherwise you it doesn't. I guess there's a one Steve Jobs quote in one of the interviews. I guess yeah, it's more like he says like, because you are doing what you love, it is very hard for other person to not keep doing what you love. Actually, if you are not loving that thing, you maybe left that part maybe after 1 year, 2 year. Even though Steve Jobs still doing what he loves, at the end of the day, still even though he kicked out from his company around it, but still doing what he loves to do. So keep doing it, I will just say. And maybe any Louis and John Paul have like a final comments point. So yeah.
Yeah, I will leave Juan Pablo with an answer, with his final comments, but with a question. Sorry, with a question that I saw on the chat. That, hey Juanpa, do I need to have a ton of Twitter X followers to become a developer advocate?
Of course, you have. It's all about the followers. No, you don't. I think, as we mentioned, like there's a lot of people in like hidden in the backstage organizing a lot of this stuff. So definitely, it's not a big way. It's not a way to measure success. I would say a lot of the like some of the greatest developer advocates that I know don't have a big Twitter following, but they still know like they do know like some really cool people. Like even if they don't have a massive following, they know how to connect, and I think that's kind of like what is the most valuable thing. And I think in last words for me, like Hacktoberfest is here only for 1 month, but you can always contribute beyond that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of projects looking for help, and if you go to if you need like any help, you can go to Community Exchange on the education website, and we have student projects that are looking for help. So if you want to make that first pull request, take it a go.
Yep, that's awesome. Also, is like this now we are in the giveaway time. So, Louis, Johnpa, take a common one person who thinks can be a winner who's most active on the chat section, basically. So, is there any name that you want to drop off?
You're gonna put that on me though. You're gonna be the one deciding that.
But it just like maybe Louis, like, what's your take? Like, anyone, any name like in your
Oh,
mind, maybe.
I hate, uh, I hate, I hate doing this. Let's, yeah, let's think about a raffle or something much easier for all the ones, because I see that everyone has been quite active on the chat, and I see people who has been asking questions, people, a lot of people who are like commenting on the chat. So yeah, it will be hard because like yeah, 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 no, let's do other thing. Eh?
Um, Cool. Maybe if I will take here one name, maybe I guess Ashish Malala. I guess maybe like I can say around it. Yeah, I guess maybe. Uh, yeah, cool. Ashish, you are the winner of that. Like because like
I
obviously
love how this is absolutely not biased though.
why I'm saying I will let you know because Johnpa and Luis also are in a kind of a hurry, so I wanted to make that stream on. So if possible, please reach out to me on my DMs on Twitter if possible, and we will love to share. Just share your mail ID so that my backend staff, like basically Tokir, can take your mail and will mail you around it. And again, it's not just ended. It's just not ended, folks. You have another opportunity to win a GitHub tea. So write a blog or maybe a Twitter thread tagging OpInCo Community. I guess another post is also all on our slide. So basically use hashtag HacktoberWeek, tag Lewis and Johnpa with us, and you can share it around that part. And last but not the least, I will soon end the stream. But before that, just wanted to share one thing with you all. Last quick pointers, if I would say. Um, Let me know. I guess my screen is visible. I am hoping. Yeah, cool. So also, folks, we are our community is also open. So if you want to contribute to any project, you can. We have two major projects right now is going on. One is Open Connect, basically, which is kind of a open source version of Meetup.com. So we will love to have you around there. And if you think maybe if you can contribute, all things are open, so you can go it around and check it around that, and we will love to there. But yeah, and again, Louis, thanks for joining, thanks for accepting our invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here and sharing your insights around developer advocacy. Thanks,
Thank you,
Louis.
everyone. See you around.
See you, everyone. Bye bye, take care, and yeah, we will see you soon. Catch up you all. Yeah, see ya. Bye bye. And Also write the blogs around it and Twitter thread. You can tag me, OpInCo Community, Juanpa, and Louis for the same, and we will give you the result on the, you can say, tomorrow. I will say, if you will do it maybe in under 24 hours, so we can say around it for sure. But yeah, cool. What you can do, Ashish, let me do one thing for you. This is my, if you can DM me on Instagram also, that is also sufficient. Like, this is my ID if you want. So if you can ping me, that's also. Otherwise, what you can do right now, DM, like drop your email ID so that Tokir can take up that, I guess. Just for the let you know, Tokir is in the backstage, so he will taking care of that part basically. So drop your mail in the chat section only so that we can reach out through your mail, if that possible also. And folks, again, write blog. There can be an opportunity for you to win that thing. And yeah, if possible, Ashish, drop your mail ID if possible. Yeah, if possible. Yeah, cool. Otherwise, I hope so. Everything is doing great. Let me check another thing if you have anything more around it. Cool. If you can message Tokir also, that's also sufficient. Otherwise, you can drop a mail here, your mail basically on the chat. We will take up that. Yeah. Cool. I hope so you got some insights throughout the stream, folks. And thanks for joining. I hope so you have an awesome stream. You learn something out of it. And maybe we will meet you on the next stream, maybe. But yeah, I hope so everything is going fine. And till then, keep watching. Maybe Ashwin.